which was, not a lot of money, but it's pretty parallel. So why did I leave Arcadia Studios, which is, I still work with them um, as a consultant, but I wanted to expand my own, I wanted to explore my own purpose. And my intention when I graduated was to work on public projects, support frontline communities, and ideally to be in a very collaborative environment, very focused on sustainability and ecology. When you work in a small town like Santa Barbara and you have a very strong and successful high residential practice, you don't always have room to expand in these ways. And I wanted to try. So how did I do this? I got licensed. I I stayed on with my firm consulting and also working part-time. So I went from part-time to consulting, and that allowed me to have enough work until my own work filled in. I had connections through people that I met at Arcadia, mostly. And then sometimes I would just meet people in the street and start talking to them, and there's another connection. So I had support. I have family support. My husband has a very good supportive career. So I don't have to worry about my rent, et cetera. And that was a huge burden off my back. And then having a mission was the drive. Why licensure? I was in a big hurry to be licensed, and I really wanted to have all my options opened. I didn't want to be locked in because you can go through your career and not be licensed if you are, for example, in a big city like LA or New York or San Francisco, and you're going to stay with large firms doing projects that really satisfy you. You don't really need to be licensed. I felt I felt a great sense of accomplishment. I feel security in my knowledge because I went through the licensure process. So I feel strongly about being licensed, just because of my personal experience. So opportunities and constraints. First and foremost is financial. It's the flow is difficult. You don't always get the work that you want or that will flesh out for you in the proper way. It's hard to pace the work. Sometimes you end up going out and getting a bunch of work in the same phase, and it's intense. Trying to find consultants that will work part-time with you. And then if you're not providing steady work, they can't necessarily provide steady availability. Wanting to have time for continuing education, managing projects alone sometimes was very hard. It's hard sometimes not to have another person or people to bounce ideas off of. You feel like you're handling everything alone. I hate marketing with a passion. I hate bragging about myself or showing off my work. It's just really uncomfortable. So also when you go out on your own, I mean, it's hard to get permission from firms that you worked with and on projects that you worked with in different capacities to put them on your website or put them in your portfolio. So I was really focused on having the imagery from my own work, and it takes maybe a year to get a project going and another year after installation for you to be able to get worthwhile photos. And then, of course, there's limited opportunities depending on how soon you launch your own solo practice. And that's a big contrast between Pam and I. And we'll talk more about Pam's process. But I have these goals to do public projects in parks, but my opportunities as a solo practitioner and as someone who is relatively new, this is a very difficult path that doesn't have a very clear pathway. Opportunities are being able to rebrand yourself and be very clear about your mission through the website, through word of mouth, volunteerism. I get a lot of sense of purpose through my volunteering with ASLA Southern California as the Climate Action Committee Chair. And also, I'm seeking volunteer opportunities for nonprofits here to be able to do the work that I want to do and I want to be known for, but I'll do them pro bono just to get that experience and also to to help people out, smaller nonprofits that just don't have the funds or can't really raise the money for some of their hopes for their projects. Um, I have a lot of chances to explore my own creativity, and feel confident in meeting challenges. I remember the first time I was doing my own planting plan without, a company behind me. I was so intimidated and I felt so uncomfortable. And then once I did it, I wasn't uncomfortable anymore. I just felt like it'll all work out. It's their plants. It's, that kind of thing. And I also have gone back, as Pam tells me I could go back more often, but I go to Pam and I say, can you look at my documents and tell me what you think? So I really do depend on mentorship. And then having the opportunity to pick clients, and other consultants that I know we're going to work together as a community with love, with mission, and with resilience. So next steps, I'm confused about my next steps, to be honest, because I've done a few high-end residentials. They were fun, but I want to go back to my original purpose. And so these are going to be baby steps, and it's going to be a long path. But some of the things, like I mentioned, doing pro bono work, um, starting to measure my projects for biodiversity and sustainability and sharing that information and making sure that future clients know that that's important to me. Um, I'm also reaching out to other solo practitioners so that perhaps we can collaborate or join in on an RFP, and maybe do projects together. And then I'm starting to put out my website, which is a really good opportunity to let people know up front, whether you meet them in the street or through friends or through connections, you can direct them to your website and they'll have a clear idea of what your intentions are and where you stand. So I will pass it on to Pamela.
That was great. Thanks, Alyssa. Um, Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here today. I'm Pamela Brief, and my firm is Pamela Studios. Speaking of websites that Alyssa was just talking about, if you open ours up, this is the home page. And I put this here because I think it's really so important for us as practitioners to have this sort of like, what's the one sentence that really describes like who you are as a landscape architect? I think not only is it important for us as we go out as solo practitioners and have our own firm, to have that guiding light, but just really for us, even as individuals, right? Like what makes us tick, what excites us about the firm and or about this profession. Because there can be times when you're with a firm, and their guiding light sort of shifts. And maybe by revisiting this for yourself, that might be the point where you say, maybe it is time for me to go out on my own. So next slide, please. So following along with what Elisa started with hers, we're going to do the when, what, how, where, why, all of that kind of thing. And so for my timeline, I graduated from Ohio State and was tired of really warm, humid weather and freezing cold weather. My brother was living in San Diego. John, you will know that visiting him, John Rasinski is lucky enough to live down in San Diego. And I visited him often and I said, there is absolutely no reason why I should not be living in this state. It's fabulous. And Ohio is like, I'm gonna like put that in my rearview mirror. So it was a great place to grow up and all of that, but I left immediately after graduation and joined a firm called Pod, that is no longer a part of the Orange County fabric, but was a big firm back in the day, and did a lot of award-winning projects. So I was lucky to have started there. Um, and after Pod, I actually went to Emmett Wemple and Associates, which is another firm that most people probably don't know, except for people like John and I. And um, so after that, then I my husband at the time was working for Peridian Group, and he started doing the drawings for Walt Disney Imagineering for Disneyland Paris. And so we moved over to Paris, and I was hired as well and proceeded to work from 89 to 2004 at Walt Disney Imagineering. I liken it to a master's degree. It was an amazing time in my life from a career standpoint of spending time deep in the design realms, in the construction document realm, and then spending years at a time in the field, getting experience on how things were going together. We were in the field every single day, taking multiple trips to the site, working on quick sketches to hand to the contractors. And so this experience, this Walt Disney Imagineering experience, is really what to me I think was the foundation of what made me feel secure to then launch what was Schirmer Design at the time in 2004. And like Alyssa said, you don't always start doing the projects that you want to do right off. You take what you can get. And I did that. I was doing a lot of residential design, and word of mouth was carrying me through. So when Journey Partnership approached me about a job in 2006, I said, boy, wouldn't it be nice to get a paycheck every week again, for a solid amount that I know what it's going to be. So they wooed me away from Schirmer Design from 2006 to 2008, and then the economy got all bumpy and crazy. And so back I was at my own firm. But by that time, I had remarried. So my last name was no longer Schirmer. It was now Brief. And I could not call myself Brief Design for very obvious reasons. Yeah. So hence Pamela Studios emerged as my new firm. And that took me into 2014 when again, Brightview Design Group, who was doing a lot of Orange County Great Park, approached me and asked me if I would work in their LA office. And so I did that for about a year until the commute from La Crescenta to Santa Monica took way too many hours out of my life. And I said, I've got to stop this. So back I was in 2016 until now with my own firm and loving it. When I first started my firm back in 2004, I said, you know what, I'm going to give this 6 months. And if I hate everything about it, if I'm not getting work, I was a single parent at the time because I was newly divorced. So I was responsible for the household financially. And I said, if this doesn't work, in 6 months, I'll go get a job somewhere. And 6 months went pretty fast. So then I said, well, let's do another 6 months. And then I did a year. And I just kind of say to myself every year, okay, if at any point this is really terrible, you can always change your mind and do something else. But here I am still. So we'll go onward here.
Awesome.
So the why. As Elisa said, defining your purpose and defining what the things are that you really want to do and why you're going out on your own. I think looking at that is really important. So doing a little soul searching. For me, when I left Disney, I was very interested in doing more spiritual based gardens, whether that was meditation spaces, prayer gardens, whatever it might be, but things that were very contemplative, um, kind of a polar opposite of the Walt Disney Imagineering experience, which is a very active space. Also, as I said, I was newly divorced and I wanted that flexibility that having my own practice could afford me. I had responsibility. My ex-husband at the time was moving away to Japan to work. And so I wanted the flexibility. I was picking up my daughter. I was like in charge of the family at that point. So um, that gave me my own firm gave me that opportunity. And also looking more local at the communities that I served, the growth that it provided me, and the sustainability and ecological aspects of design were very high on my priority list at the time. And that I would say was probably, other than the flexibility, was one of the largest reasons that I decided to step out on my own. We'll go to the next slide. So, so besides the design, can we go back one more, Elisa? Oh, okay, there we go. Um, so the how. Um, as Elisa said, she jumped in and got her license really soon after she graduated. Now, again, she was already a career professional before she went to UCLA Extension. So she had many years in the professional world. So she wasn't new to that, but she was new to landscape architecture. I'm in contrast, my career, like I said, my work experience really prepared me to navigate that licensure process. And also I had great mentors. So those two things gave me the confidence that I needed to go out on my own. When I first started my own practice, I didn't have my license yet. So all I could do legally at that time were planting plans. So it was very important for me to get that license so that I could practice landscape architecture. Next. So besides the design, getting out on your own, getting to work on new projects and work with different people, is wonderful. Um, there are other things that we have to do, as Elisa alluded to, the marketing and all of that. So I've just put a couple bullet points here under the financial and administration part of things. I think it's really important to create a business plan, that little tagline like you guys saw, and hire an accountant right away, like straight up. Talk to one maybe even before you even decide you're going to start your firm. You'll need to register your business and do all of these very businessy, taxy things. The insurance that you hold is important and required if you're a landscape architect and practicing. You must hold insurance in the state of California, and then have several months of cash reserve so that you're not totally freaking out if you don't get that job that you put that proposal together for, and just start sending out proposals because you're not going to get everyone. And what a great problem it would be to have too much work. You would just have to start hiring people. So too little work, way worse than too much work, in my opinion. The time management part of things I think is super important to talk about today. Setting meeting times for not only your project design time, but also your administrative time, because we are landscape architects and we went to school to do design and build things, not do timesheets, not do administrative things. And so, unless you schedule it, I was terrible at billing people, which is a pretty important part of the process when you are the sole provider for your family. And set meeting time for yourself. Give yourself at least a couple times a day or times a week where you go walk in a garden, go do whatever your hobby is, mountain bike, whatever it might be. But set that time because as a sole practitioner, I did find myself working like, oh, my office was in my home. So I just, I'll just walk in there and I'll do a couple things. And then, 3 hours would go by and it would be 11 o'clock at night. It was stuff that I didn't really have to do that evening. So be careful about your time management and also being disciplined, in just in getting your work done and making your deadlines. You're now in charge of that, and you don't have someone looking over your shoulder. On the marketing end of things, hire experts that do it, people that know how to build websites. If you know friends that have done it, colleagues, ask your colleagues who they've used, and then read books, look at blogs, you know, devour that end of things, especially if it's not something that you've been involved in the firm that you've been at. And then last, but certainly not least, is find a mentor. It is so very important. Next slide. So just jumping in here at the end a little bit, Alyssa and I are going to just talk a little bit about mentorship. Um, and the why is that professional growth is so vital in your career development. So I would say if you're in a firm right now and you don't have a mentor, really important to get one. And how do you go about that, whether it's formal or informal, is really up to you and your mentor. If you are later in your career, consider being a mentor to someone. And you can volunteer as much time as you have on your plate. So it's really up to you, the mentor and the mentee, to decide what it looks like. I think a lot of times people think, well, it has to be this really formal thing, and we get together once a month, and it's always at this time, and it really doesn't have to be. I think Alyssa, you can testify to that, right? That
Yes, yeah.
like we've made it what we want it to be. Um, and even the other day you were saying, "Oh, I wish I could call you more." And I'm like, "Well, why don't you?"
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and so Pam and I have more of a, I wouldn't say it's formal. Maybe I
Mhm.
have two mentors, and one is a woman I worked with closely and I still work with her. So there's this natural mentorship when you work with someone who has the kind of personality that they like to guide people, they like to share information, they like to have you do things that you're afraid of doing, just kind of throw you in the fire and then check your work. Um, and also, I worked with Pam for a few months, and she's a very supportive person. So there's a natural mentorship quality to Pam, that I feel comfortable asking for advice. And I also will sometimes on a very formal level say, here's my CD package. I need to send it over to a board of architectural review, or I have to send it into the building and safety department. Could you look it over, and I'll pay her for her services, because like I don't have somebody above me, and I didn't have enough time doing CDs under someone to feel fully confident. But also, no one should be doing CDs and having, like, you should always have somebody look at your CDs, even if you are, I'm sure Pam has someone look at her CDs.
Yes, we have peer review. We don't just look at them ourselves.
You
Like
can't
that's
see, yeah,
yeah,
you
and
can't
that's
see it.
part of my E&O insurance actually now. They've started asking that question if you
Mm.
have a formal peer review system in your firm. Um, and I pay less insurance because of that. Because it does, I mean, here's someone looking at a project for the first time. They don't know anything about it, and they ask really great questions about things that it's so obvious to you that you've left something off,
Mhm.
that could be important. So yeah, it's a super big part of the process.
And then the other thing is I've gone to Pam saying, I really want to have more purpose. And she was the one who recommended me to be the climate action chair for ASLA, it's a big deal for me because I find so much purpose and so much camaraderie in being on the executive committee. Um, and then with my other mentor, I'll tell her I really want to start doing things that have more value. So she'll be like, do you want to join this board for the San Ynez Botanic Garden? Do you want to work with another person and I on on a special garden for the Lompo community, which is a community in Santa Barbara County that's a little bit more of a frontline community. So sometimes they'll lead you in the right direction. You can have continued mentorship through doing pro bono projects.
That's right. Yeah. And to that how-to part of things, getting involved in organizations like ASLA SoCal is a great way to do that. Going to chapter events, going to other networking events, looking at your alumni connections, and if you're still in school, asking an instructor. There are a host of ways, and what I find is people in our profession are really willing to help the next generation and um, and looking for opportunities themselves as more experienced practitioners to take people under their wing. And so sometimes they just evolve. I mean, you don't always have to say, "Will you be my mentor?" I mean, something like these things just evolve into these relationships where and I've, got the words over here about mentoring of helping you with success, giving you direction. Um, all of these words, very important, the motivation and all of that. Um, and I think as a mentor, one thing that's very important is the listening to the mentee and really seeing like what makes them tick, what is it that they are striving for, and taking that and seeing how you can help them, help guide them through the process. So that's what I enjoy as a mentor.
I do want to add one thing. I did do things differently on the getting in a, I have an accountant for my taxes, but I do my own accounting every month myself because I'm really small still. Secondly, I couldn't afford someone to do my website. So I'm doing it myself. And
Mhm.
I have this attitude of, well, I had a logo when I started that I did myself, but I have hired someone to do a logo because the messaging behind fonts and behind graphics is way above my knowledge base.
Right.
Um,
Hmm.
so I think I sometimes have to tell myself, like, for example, when I'm putting my website together, I'm like, oh, I really wish I had more natives or I had like a more modern palette, which I feel is more blended with natives. And then I'm like, look, this is a good start. Don't
Hmm.
like perfect is the enemy of the good. You can change it as you go.
That's right. That's right. And trying to keep it updated as much as possible, which it's like do as I say, not as I do, because I desperately need to update mine. And we were just talking about that at the end of last year. It's like, this is the year of the website update. It's got to happen. So we redid it during the pandemic because we had some time on our hands. Um, so now it's time to revisit that.
So should we extend this time for questions?
I think that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, let's do it. I just want to thank you both for giving a really good presentation. You guys are a unique case because you guys are the mentor and the mentee, and you guys can really share your own experiences and your personal experiences and your personal relationship with each other. And also that there's no one way of going about it, of owning a firm. But we know that through this presentation, the education, experience, connections, they're all really key components to building that foundation. So I think for all the EPs and even non-EPs listening to this meeting can really learn a lot from you guys. So thank you.
Our
You're
pleasure.
welcome. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we can open up this time for any questions. You can write it in the chat or blurt it out loud, just however you guys feel like doing.
Hello? So, oh, go ahead, Hasna.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
Mhm.
can you talk a little bit louder?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry, I have an issue with my microphone.
No worries.
What would you advise someone who is recent graduate but has more experience in another field, how to merge the two knowledge and land, I would say, a first job in an area where I have, beside what I studied in school, I have no hands-on experience. That would be great.
Mhm.
Well, my first thought is your background in architecture is valuable and it will translate as a valuable aspect, like an aspect on your resume. So I think you would automatically be a very attractive candidate. So I think that most people can see the relationship between architecture, planning, and landscape architecture. That's my first thought. Pam, do you want to say something?
When you say you're looking for that position, are you looking for a landscape architectural position?
Yes, a landscape designer.
Landscape designer, yeah. Um, yeah, I think that combined architecture and landscape architecture together. I know friends of mine that have had that combination and they've been very valuable. So um, know that that's the case. First off, like you've kind of got a little superpower thing going there. So um, congratulations on that. That's an amazing combination. And and then I would say, through your alumni organization, through your local chapter, perhaps. I don't know if you've gotten involved with your local ASLA chapter, but that is a great way to meet professionals.
And also AWA plus D.
Yeah. Are you here in LA?
Yes, I'm in LA.
Okay. Oh,
Ah,
yeah, great. Oh, yeah, AWA plus D is great because it's it's the Association of Women in Architecture and Design. So it's the architecture group, so landscape architecture and architecture, and also designers of like there's graphic designers, there's interior designers, and it is really a great supportive group of women.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. I've never heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
oh yeah. Let me see if I
AWA
can.
plus D. I'll find it on here and I'll send you a link in the chat.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I
Yeah.
do want to add there's somebody on this call who has a very similar superpower named Jared McKnight, who studied land architecture and then went into landscape architecture and now works in landscape architecture. So Jared, maybe you could, are you able to say two words? Are you,
Sure.
okay.
I'm also available, Hasna, if you want to kind of follow up afterwards. Happy to kind of chat through. I think I I took a maybe I'm not sure what your background was and if you took any time in between your two, but I studied architecture, worked for about 6 years in architecture, and then went back to school for landscape, and am now focused on landscape. And I think what's really tough in the early stages, coming with both backgrounds, is where you want to invest your time and kind of grow your professional development. And I think that's can happen in a number of ways. One of which is you focus on one kind of early on and just totally immerse yourself in it. Or you could also be looking for multidisciplinary firms who are focused in the realm of architecture, landscape, and potentially planning, and try and get your experiences that way. But I've greatly benefited from kind of my dual academic backgrounds, and if I can ever be a resource, happy to touch base offline.
And
That
then
would
I
be
would just
great.
add,
Oh,
oh,
sorry. I would love that. Thank you, Jared.
Jared, do you think you might be able to put your email or contact info for her in the chat?
Yeah, that would be great. And I
Yeah.
put it in the chat, but AWA plus D is a great organization. They actually are having like a New Year's type gathering this Friday. So if anybody goes on the website, I'm assuming that you could still sign up if you wanted to. They do allow men to attend as
They
well.
allow men to be members.
They do.
And they have a symposium in the springtime, which is pretty amazing and very
Yeah, it's
inspiring.
spectacular. Yeah, they're a great group.
Yeah,
Yeah. And of course, ASLA. Go to your ASLA circular
absolutely.
events.
Join the Climate
ASLA.
Action Committee, join,
Yes.
whatever you want.
Well, getting involved in the XCOM is really good. But if you can't, if there are time issues that you can't give that amount of time for any reason, attending the events that the chapter has is, or webinars like this are important. You start to meet people and um, it's all good. The more people you know, the better. Those connections, that's a big thing.
Bro, thank you guys so much.
You're welcome. Good luck. Maybe I'll see you around at a ASLA or AWA plus D event.
That would
Yeah.
be great. I would love to.
Anybody else?
Don't be shy, we won't bite.
Mhm.
I have a question while everybody else is thinking of some other stuff. How did you know in like before you transitioned into like the next stage of your career? I know there's some certain like life factors that played into some of your transitions. But how did you know you were sort of like leaning in one direction or another, and what were some of those feelings that really pushed you, right? I mean, humans are resilient, so we could put up with a lot of
Mhm.
discomfort before, getting pushed into something else. So what were those like sort of, straw that broke the camel's back kind of feelings or motivations for you?
Mhm. Well, I would say for me, so many people look at Walt Disney Imagineering and being in that realm and oh, how exciting it is and all of that. And yet I was feeling like I could kind of design with a blindfold on. Like there was like it was time, right? It wasn't the projects were always new, they were exciting. It just wasn't challenging me in the same way that it had. Um, and and I was really feeling this calling to do more local work, make a little bigger impression in my community and work with the community too. It was, we're in Tokyo or we're in Florida or Paris or, and that's all very fun and it's nice to go to France and it's nice to visit Paris, but at that point, I had done it so much over the 15 years that I had been there. I was like, I just want to work on projects in my backyard, right? Like that really was important to me. Ones that I could drive by, right, and just see, and see people like one of my favorite things is when people are using a space that I have designed in a way that I have not designed it. Like that is so cool. I'm just like, oh my God, I meant it to be this way, and they're doing this, and that is amazing, and they're having the best time. And like there's nothing better than that. And you don't like unless you're going into the park or something, which I did in Anaheim, but not like here and not the same. Yeah.
I guess for me, it was I was working in a firm and I started to realize that they had, and like Pam said, I had a background. My first job was working for Vogue Paris in New York, and I produced all the shoots for Condé Nast Paris in the United States because my boss didn't want to. She was too busy socializing, which was fantastic for me. But to start off your actual career and your first job is that I had a lot of project management skills. And at first I was getting to do it, but then it was more like, wait, 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 we want to pull you back into the way that we groom our landscape architects. And it wasn't something that fit well. It was like just sitting there and drafting and drafting and drafting and drafting and not having not having as much of a scope, like a wide, broad context to these projects. And I was really frustrated on a creative level. Um, and I didn't really like how long how long they kept people in a position of like drafting only. It didn't fit my life patterns. So I had an urgency to go on my own.
Mhm.
Going off of that, Alyssa, are you kind of implementing the ideas and like the things that worked and didn't work while you were growing up, and then all like the drafting, like the hours and hours of drafting, are you implementing that in your firm and into the people that you work with now?
Yes, I learned a lot from, and I continue to learn because I'm working on two projects with the woman that I'm most connected with, who's my other mentor. I continue to work with her, and we are constantly, but we have a more collaborative relationship, which is why it works for me. I feel more like I'm working at my own age level. Um, so I continue to learn like how they organize their phases, their limit, where they draw the line on what they will or won't do. Making sure you follow your process, not allowing a client to pull you in the direction saying, I want you to do it this way. So a sort of setting boundaries and professional boundaries for the sake of the project. Um,
Yeah.
I really learned a lot, and I would have loved to have learned more from a lot of my colleagues there. But sometimes you have to move on.
Yeah. Yeah, those boundaries are very, very important. That's a good point that you bring up, Elisa. Yeah, clients will have you do everything. Like, yeah, they'll just keep asking for stuff. They like to do that.
Be a landscape
You have to go
contractor.
back and reread your contract sometimes to remember that you didn't tell them you would do that. Oh, wait, I didn't put that out there, did I?
Well, that's a good point too. These proposals, like I have learned a lot. I started off with a proposal system sort of similar to theirs, but then I
Hmm.
ended up sending it to a lawyer. I bought a contract from ASLA. They do sell them so that and then I rewrote it. And then as I looked at other contracts, I refined it more. I have the scopes very clearly defined. And every job I go back and I more clearly define them. Like now I'm saying,
Hmm.
like in the proposal, I'm going to start adding the time that you come and visit the project the year after to make sure that it's growing well. That
Hmm.
is a very important thing to put in your contract because they often don't want to pay for it, and you'll find yourself because you care going back for free, which is
Hmm.
not really what we're supposed to be doing.
No, we are a business. We
We're
have a business so
professionals.
that we can pay our mortgages and rent and all of those things. Yeah. Yeah, the
Yeah.
bank doesn't care if we're nice and work for free. Yeah.
And also letting people know meetings, you charge for meetings, you charge for phone calls. You're not a therapist. Sometimes you have to kind of softly tell them, I'm sorry you're not getting along with your colleague. I have to charge you for this phone call. You still want to talk about this, you know? But yeah, it's boundary setting is very important.
Yeah. Yeah, I also something that I'm often surprised that I tell colleagues that have been in practice for decades. They'll ask me a question about something and I'll that's contractual, like something about a contract. And I'll often say, have you talked to your EO group? Have you talked to your insurance folks? And they're like, oh no. And it's like, really? Can I do that? And I'm like, yeah, you pay them a lot of money every year for that E&O and general liability insurance. Like, run things by them. In fact, every so often I send my contract over to them again every few years just to have them look at it. And they will often. More and more, they're starting not to have legal in-house, which they used to more, um, you know, pre-pandemic. But they there's always opportunity um, to have them as your sounding board on certain projects, especially if when you're doing the contract, things are a little like you're unsure. Don't dive in and think you're going to figure it out on the fly with a contract or something legal. Lean on them. And if they don't have the people in place, they'll tell you who you need to call or contact.
And then I got a job with a very large, I did not know it was a very large commercial developer but it was. I found out later. And I found out later during the contract process. And it was very scary because they sent back, comments to my contract. And one of the things they wanted me to give up was my copyright. And I thought, no, I'm not setting that precedent. I'm not part of that. So I had to explain to them like that was a professional standard, that copyright, and that's
Yeah.
illegal. We
It is.
have
It's actually state of California law.
It is.
Hmm.
So I had to push back. And, it's hard when you get this big job and you're small and you're new and think, I might not get this. But then you're like, I don't want this if it's not on my, on a basis that I feel comfortable with.
Hmm. Yep.
I really have, this has really been a helpful phone call, or I should say a Zoom call. I really appreciate the expertise and what you're sharing. I'm in a similar situation to our other just graduated um, attendee here, where I'm kind of looking for my next step out of school. I've actually been out for a while because I spent some time um, uh, um, in planning. So my
Mm.
degree is in landscape architecture, but I have experience in planning, and I worked for a local government for a while because, similar to what both of you mentioned, I really value a local connection. But it has been really difficult for me to find maybe a local firm that is big enough to handle, maybe taking on someone new. What additional tips might you have for that, like, networking process of finding your mentors in your local area? So, like, I'm not in LA, I'm actually on the Central Coast, so it's a kind of a smaller
Mm-hmm.
pool.
Mm-hmm.
And I know from experience when I was a student, I did a few things as, like, for family friends, that whole designing by yourself thing. That was when I was like, nope, I am not going to be a solo practice. This does not work for me. I'm going to finish these projects because, I promised my clients, who are also, family friends, I'm going to do a good job on them. But I've learned my lesson. It's going to be a while before
Mm-hmm.
I try that again.
Yes. Yes.
Where are you on the Central Coast? And I'll let Pamela talk
Yeah.
after that.
Oh, I'm actually still in San Luis Obispo, fortunately enough.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Very nice.
Great.
Yeah.
Through Cal Poly Pomona SLO that or Cal Poly SLO, do you guys have an alumni group that is formed for graduates up there?
I should probably look into that a little more heavily. My
Yeah.
graduating class kind of fractured in a bunch of directions.
Oh,
Uh,
right. Yeah.
I was just, it was a year when kind of it feels like everybody had their direction they were going. So I did lose touch with
Hmm.
a lot of my classmates. So I'm in the phase of kind of rebuilding and seeing, who's around and what are we doing.
Yeah. I'm gonna put my email in here. Um, I've got some connections with a couple of the firms. Like you said, there's not a ton of firms up there. Go ahead and email me, and everybody can have my email. Feel free to reach out at any point if you have questions.
Thank you.
Um,
I'll
but
do the same. I'm throwing mine in there too.
but yeah, Amelia, and Hasna, if you want to talk about your job search a little bit more too, I'd be happy to do that. I might be able to put you in touch with a couple people over there and just make an introduction, Amelia, up in San Luis Obispo.
Thank you. That should be awesome.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just want to chime in on I'm a slow grad as well.
Oh yeah,
Um,
great, Kevin.
and I know that before I started working on my current job, I would reach out to like slow grads on LinkedIn mainly, and they're just more receptive to responding to you. So because they know what kind of they can share the same professors that you've gone through, the rigor that you've gone through, so that you can really relate to them. So don't feel shy to, yeah, just blind message them on LinkedIn. You can message me too. So
The firm that I worked at and I still work with, they hire almost exclusively uh, Cal Poly SLO graduates. In fact, they prefer them. So that might be a place like Kaylee Grubb. She's a principal. She's a very young principal. She's very successful. And I think she's been pretty active with the alumni. And she's at Arcadia Studio. And then there's two graduates, Dawson. Well, they graduated recently, but Scott, what is his last name? Yeah, there's a guy named Scott he's at Arcadia, and they're really nice people. They're very helpful, supportive.
That's really awesome. Thanks again. It can be a little bit daunting. I'm a person who doesn't really do a lot of social media, and so LinkedIn is a huge leap for me.
Oh, okay.
I'm barely getting started to actually get it going there, but I know it's a huge portal to professional connections. So thank you very much for the extra boost. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I do appreciate
LinkedIn is a must.
Yes, but I do appreciate your analog approach.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think, Cheryl, I think we could end the meeting here. That was such a good presentation from you
Yes.
guys and some great questions. Just for the EPs out there, for the future, we do have a similar event where we have a presentation from Melanie Buffa, our ASLA SoCal president. So that will be coming in late February. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cheryl, but
Nope, that's correct.
yeah, once we get the date exactly set, that you'll see it on the newsletter, you'll see it on the Instagram. And yeah, thank you guys all for joining in.
And I
I'll
put
just say, Zeba just asked a question, so I want to,
Oh, yes.
if I can answer Zeba's question really quick. For students who want to work at firms like yours, what skills or experience matter most for recent graduates, or some qualities that make someone a great long-term fit? Technically, I would say CAD is the most important, and then the Adobe Suite work. Those are the two things. I can teach you any program that you don't know. I can't teach you how to be kind and how to work well with others and be a team player. So, it's like we're big collaborators. Nobody throws anybody under the bus, all of that stuff. Um, and so I know like a lot of firms really stress on like what you need as far as your toolkit of tech stuff. And I don't. I want a person that rounds out our firm. Um, and like I said, I can teach you anything program wise if you don't know it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think in the long term, someone that you feel like really wants to manage projects, really wants to interface, and is willing to try things a little bit outside of their comfortability zone. Every time you venture out, it's not gonna be perfect, and that's okay. But the first step is the first step. So,
Yep. Yeah, and if you're interested, I mean, get a hold of us on LinkedIn.
yes,
You know where we live.
yeah. Thank you, everyone, so much for coming and asking
Thanks,
questions.
everybody. Great questions too. Great conversation. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, Pam.
Bye, John.
Bye.